If you go where the hippies are, they will let you be what you want to be. Of course, it's a whole different way of life. It's a whole different way of living. But more than that, it's a whole different way of thinking.
Give me liberty or give me death. Does the middle class people in this country, the white middle class, are they free? Don't kid me, they're not free. They're so hung up in this mess that they've generated that they're sick half the time. They have ulcers, they hate the life they lead, and they can't stand it.
The universe is started with hydrogen bomb wars in that the sun was started by a chain reaction of hydrogen explosions.
Will you love and cherish her?
Yeah.
Time ago, they've got nothing new.
The people that are called the people of the hippie movement are fine people.
The idea of Strawberry Fields was trust. Come down to Strawberry Fields. There's nothing to get hung about.
So I took LSD and I saw God that day, man.
Well, good evening to you. Seeking a Thread Psychedelic 100 returns. Top 50. Hope everyone's doing great. Quick thank you to everyone who's been supporting me with the record, Material Objects. Really appreciate it. It's been a great week. And also, yeah, the record's still out there. T-shirts are on the Bandcamp page, as well as the record. And that's what I'll say about that. I want to get back into this countdown. It's been 2 weeks of listening to the latest 10 records. Numbers 50 to 41 we're going to do tonight, of my top 100 favorite psychedelic records, international, of albums and vinyl that I actually own. We are listening to, today, Hapshash and the Colored Coat, one of the earliest psych records I got. I didn't really consider this for the list because it's slightly gimmicky, but it's good and it's sort of experimental. These guys were an English sort of scene stir kind of like group, kind of involved in like fashion and pop culture. And I think this album and the music was sort of an afterthought, but it comes across quite well. So it's 4 tracks on this side and then one side-long piece on the other side. Some very iconic psychedelic cover art. So that's what we got going tonight. But let's start with number 50.
Here and there, where, everywhere, where's your mind?
First record in this list by Can. Yes, I have 2 Can. Tago Mago, number 50. This is the copy I've had for many moons. I guess since I've had the CD for a long time, and then I've had this reissue, official reissue with nice inner sleeves that Mute did with the Spoon label, which is essentially Can's label. I got this when it came out. I think this is almost 10 years old now. But just a few weeks ago, I upgraded to what I thought was a first German. It's actually technically a reissue, and I was properly compensated for it not being, but it's actually the first German reissue, 1973. This is from 1971. You are United Artists. But let's talk about this record. So Can, clearly one of the greatest bands of all time, one of my favorite bands of all time, and certainly psychedelic, as well as experimental, fusing tons of different things. Takoma was really their first major accomplishment, I think. First proper album with Damo Suzuki, who they found busking on the street in Germany. I forget what city specifically that would have been. But they hired him that night to play in their gig, because they lost Malcolm Mooney, the American. Can is German, if you didn't know. They lost Malcolm Mooney, the American, who was on Monster Movie, and maybe parts of the soundtracks. I could be wrong about that, but he also ended up being on the Delay, the album that was released later. But he apparently had a mental breakdown, and so Damo Suzuki came in, a Japanese expat who just had his very own style of singing. It wasn't so much about what he was singing, but how he was singing it, and adding to the overall group that, Jackie Liebesy, the drummer, Irvin Schmidt, keyboardist, you had Holger Shukai, the bassist, Michael Caroli, guitar, all doing incredible work. And Takoma, double LP, is their first real major accomplishment. Recorded at a castle, I believe it was in Cologne. It was sort of engineered by Holger Shukai, and he apparently recorded the sound of them jamming and warming up, and used that stuff and edited it into what actually ended up becoming the album. A lot of that would be the Hallelujah, or Hallelujah as it's written, an 18-minute track that I think is on, side C? Yeah, or no, side 2. You have the Om on side 3, and that's where this album really starts picking up sort of its cutting-edge material, where they stretch out and let the 4 LP, the double album, really become what it is, like just a canvas for them to just sort of, unfurl everything. Is a monster, pun intended. Erwin Schmidt liked to call Can like a mutating organism. It really feels like that on this record. Apparently they were working on 16-hour days with Holger Shukai, like editing all of the jams, all of the proper songs, all of the rehearsals, and just kind of creating an album out of it. It took them 3 months, and they, like I said, they used rehearsals, they used proper songs, they threw everything in here on Takoma. But this is where you really start to hear Jackie Liebesy become one of the greatest drummers of all time. Just his rhythmic sense is just unparalleled. But at the same time, this is sort of has a very spacious sound, and we would even hear that more on the next record. And it breathes, it's dense, it's jam-packed with stuff. Can, Takoma, United Artists, 1971. I feel like there's so much more to say, but you just really got to listen to this record if you don't have it. So that's where we'll start. Number 50. 2 copies of this thing. I am going to keep my reissue, by the way. Number 49. We have Kevin Ayers, Joy of a Toy, his first solo album. This is a Harvest US original. And this is really almost effectively like another Soft Machine album. This is him right after Soft Machine finishes, or he drops out of Soft Machine amicably. Apparently he toured, well, I guess after the Soft Machine tour with Jimi Hendrix in the States, Ayers decided to leave the group, Mike Ratledge, Hugh Hopper would come in, but Mike Ratledge and Robert Wyatt. And apparently Jimi Hendrix gave him a guitar, Mr. Ayers, who was, by the way, the bass player and one of the vocalists in Soft Machine. And he started writing songs on that, and a lot of what we have from that is on this first album, 1969. Recorded with Robert Wyatt and Mike Ratledge on many of these tracks. You also had Hugh Hopper. Peter Jenner, manager of Pink Floyd, picked up on this record. And this was a very apparently supposed to be a big record. They spent a lot of money on this. And it kind of sounds like it. We have all kinds of different brass on here. He lists all the instruments used, Mr. Ayers. And in terms of psychedelia, this one isn't like a heavy-duty psychedelic record, but imagery and lyric content and tracks like Stop This Train, again, doing it very psychedelic. And there's a lot of psychedelic production on this, but it's really just a great rock album as well. And he composed this with arranger and pianist David Bedford, who would end up being on the Kevin Ayers and the Whole Wide World record, which I also love. Another interesting story about this Ayers record, and if you don't know Ayers, he's a very signature, deep voice is sort of his trademark, but very whimsical. You can tell by the cover, you might say. But if you don't know Kevin Ayers, it's a very deep voice, but definite pop sensibility too. Bass and guitar on Soft Machine, and playing all over this record. The other interesting story about this one is Syd Barrett actually contributed backing vocals to Religious Experience, Sing Me a Song, Religious Experience. It ended up being a B-side that did not get released in this album, but they would then release it as a single a few months after Joy of a Toy came out. However, because he was so far gone, Syd Barrett, they didn't end up using his take, but the song came out regardless. However, that take with Syd Barrett would eventually be released on a box set or a compilation later on. But 1969, Kevin Ayers' Joy of a Toy. I love Kevin Ayers. I have most of his key records, and I think he deserves to be here in this list, number 49. All right, number 48. One I don't have as much to say about, but in terms of its content, it absolutely should be here. We have Witch, Lazy Bones, one of a couple of Zamrock records that is on this list. This is the Now Again reissue, of course. This is originally on the Zambezi label, one of those Zambian labels out of Zambia, 1975. A fertile scene of rock bands that was happening in Zambia. This is one of the classic records. Their third album, not their first. Fronted by the singer Jagari Chanda, who I believe is still alive. There's not a ton of info on this band. I mean, they were actually around for a long time. Witch, we intend to cause havoc, by the way. That's what Witch is, an acronym. And it's psychedelic. It's got a lot of fuzz, and it mainly comes across as psychedelic through the simple sort of sound and the imagery and the songs. Like, there's so much, Strange Dreams, such really cool guitars in that. Lazy Bones is a really good sort of garage track. Some really cool guitar leads that aren't characteristic of other Zambian or Zamrock. But it's just such good songwriting on this record. Their best record. They would become like a disco outfit later on. And the other albums are really good too. Introduction, La Como Vibes, In the Past. This is the one to have. If you're going to have any Zamrock record, this is definitely one of them. Lazy Bones. Great production, great songs, great vocals, great fuzz. More of a garage maybe on the side of things, but absolutely incredible. Witch, Lazy Bones. Number 48. 47. Some might be surprised that I didn't pick the first album of this band, but this is the one that sort of has the most sort of wide-ranging and just most artistic, I think.
There's no sun. Moon day. There's no moon. Tuesday I am thirsty.
Group 1850's second record, Paradise Now, and I do love the first album, Jimo's Trip to Mother Earth. But I go with this one. This one's more of a space rock, sort of Can-like for sure on this run. Group 1850, one of the great groups out of the Dutch psychedelic period. This is from 1969. Very spacious, like I said, space rock sort of vibe on this. Originally called the Klits, actually. Short-lived. Did have a single, very rare single, released on the Dutch label Yep, with a picture sleeve. They became Group 1850 and started writing, acid rock, and they did that on their first album. But this is the one where I think they really settle into their own skin a bit. Paradise Now, from 1969. The band that started in the beat scene, they had that sort of pedigree to it, but like most of the bands, they was trying to get more artistic as the days go by. It's so led by the vocalist Peter Gaarden, I think. A lot of weird chanty vocals, sort of, a little bit off kilter. I like that. There's the song Mother No Head where they definitely go all chant-like, but yeah, the lineup shifted a bit for this record, for what I understand. And the cool thing is they were using a keyboard called a synthesizer called the Organizer that was like a custom keyboard that was designed for them and utilized to great effect on this record. This is not like a record that you maybe pick a track out of so much. It sort of lives and breathes in its entirety. This is a Dutch original on the Disco Foon label. There you have that. And one of the great Dutch bands for sure. The Dutch Can, if you will. Can weighing heavy on this list. So that's number 47, Group 1850. There isn't a shitload of information about Group 1850, but they would do a third record in a few years later, Polyandry, which is very good. I don't have that one. And they've retained a pretty good amount of legend, I suppose. So if you don't know that band, and Dutch psychedelia in general is really, really good. All right, number 46.
Don't say you said goodbye now. Don't say you've said goodbye. Your suit of chrome, it once shined so bright. She told me you were.
Here's my nice, beautiful copy of the Red Crayola's technically second album, although really their third. God Bless the Red Crayola and all who sail with it. A very forward-thinking record, a proto-punk record, really. This is from 1968? 68, yeah. They recorded the first album, The Parable of Arable Land. Yep, you'll hear about that one. And that was for international artists, Leland Rogers, who, even though probably someone who was into some shady business, as many record producers were, he was pretty, willing to take chances. And that first, the familiar ugly Parable of Arable Land, we'll get into that record, but that one is mind-blowing. Not successful like the 13 Full Elevators. They recorded a second record called Coconut Hotel, which would come out in the 1990s, and it was rejected because it was completely doing something else. Stripped down and just a completely different thing. Well, they continued that style for this record that did come out 1968, led by Mayo Thompson, who was just about ready to do his own solo record, Corky's Debt to His Father. That's Meio here, I believe. I think. Yeah. Dick Ray, Mayo Thompson, Steve Cunningham. This is kind of like a little bit like David Peel and Lower East Side, or if you can call it that. Song fragments, sort of ideas thrown about. Lots of songs on this. There is a song called Coconut Hotel on this, by the way. This is my nice original white label promo. I got this. I mean, I scored on this one. I forget. I think this was an eBay find, and it was just, it's beautiful. It's in the shrink and everything. So I'm happy with this one. But yeah, this one is nothing like the first album. And you have Mayo Thompson doing most of the songs, guitar, piano, and organ. There's sort of an acoustic weirdness to this. It's sort of even as many times as I've heard this, like it's really just kind of hard to pin this one down. Just a strange one, but cool. I love what he does. Yeah, this is certainly could have been seen as an early post-punk album, or punk, whatever it is. So weird that this one was rejected or accepted, and I think Coconut Hotel was very fragmented, and this one sort of dialed it in a bit. But very scrappy. This Heat kind of comes to mind a little bit with some of the way the songs come and go. But this is a record I used to have a very early Karma issue of, and I upgraded to this one a few years ago now. Anyway, here we have it. 46, Red Crayola. God bless the Red Crayola and all who sail with it. Okay, number 45.
See how this place has found you. Soon there will be no road back. Time will have painted it black. But if you come with me, you are going to see how happy your life will be.
Here we have the Baroques on Chess Records, 1967. I bought this seal, believe it or not. It was not warped. This is an original mono on Chess. The Baroques out of Wisconsin, Milwaukee, and signed by Marshall Chess, who, younger brother of Leonard, was brought in to bring in some other acts, some different some rock acts to Chess. He signed a few different groups. I don't know if any of them that was successful, but the Baroques were one of them. And this is a garage psych, fantastic, killer, no filler record. They had a single that was banned, so that got them some attention. Mary Jane, which apparently wasn't about weed. Whatever, dudes. They probably weren't smoking weed. A lot of these psych groups were sort of squares anyway, but some of them were inspired. And, they self-financed that single, got banned, but it got them some attention. They played regionally, and Marshall Chess signed them to Chess Records. The album was a flop. No one cared. I mean, this one is somehow not... Oh, no, there is a punch. This is probably a classic record you'd find in cutout bins. I mean, you can see here the original 2 for $1 sticker. But there's just some killer songs on here that are singular in their sort of feeling. The song Mary Jane is awesome. This song needs no introduction. Love it. Purple Day. They just really feel different. Really feel different. Jay Borkenhagen is the primary songwriter. Actually, he came into the band a little bit after. Obviously was around for this record. And they got dropped pretty much right away. Some members went to Vietnam. And they did release a private press, I think, single later that was really good. I've listened to that. That one's super rare, of course. But when it comes to garage psych records, this one is up. This is like one of the best, and that's why it's on this list. I just think it sounds really good too. It's recorded very well, and the songs just kick ass, and I just love the arrangements. They're sparkling at times. Just some really just strange. The song Bicycle, I've had it stuck in my head the other day for a long time, and not the Queen Bicycle, but yeah, just what they were doing with their songwriting was just ahead of its time, I think. So, self-titled record, The Baroque's 1967 on Chess Records. German record, and another band we're going to hear more of. Another band that has to be here. Neu 75 from 1975. The great Neu. Michael Rother, Klaus Dinger, the drummer, Rother, the guitarist, formed this band, and just after Kraftwerk kicked Dinger out, and Rother, I guess, was in there for a time too. So they formed around 71. This is a Brain original, German Brain, Green Brain. Record that came out in the U.S. on Capitol, believe it or not. So, following, the attention I think that Rother generated with Harmonia, the supergroup with Cluster, and maybe the David Bowie sort of connections, he came back to do Neu, this third album. Wasn't necessarily thought there would be a third album, but Rother had time for it, and Dinger hadn't yet formed La Dusseldorf, so here we have it. Klaus Dinger, the guitarist, he was trying to move the band in more of a sort of psychedelic. Dinger, the drummer, was trying to move the band in sort of a psychedelic direction, while Rother was really in that ambient school thing that was happening with Harmonia, and that he would, was working on with Cluster. And so they sort of split the sides. The first side sounds a little more like the original Neu, a little more cosmic, a little more sort of spacious, where the second side is Dinger on guitar, singing, and it has a more of a crunchy feel to it, but both are just classic, I think. Thomas Dinger is also Dinger's brother, is on this, as well as Hans Lampe. But this is recorded by Conrad Plank. Yep, sure is. Connie Plank. You can always find him on all these masterpieces. The song EC, that starts the first side, is just maybe the first thing I ever heard by Neu. I first heard these in the year 2000 when Astralworks reissued them, and I was just so drawn by these simple covers, like a lot of people were, I think, so drawn to it. And I just think it's just the sound. It's just a heavenly sound. It's the sound of heaven. Like I've said that before, but just beautiful, just expansive. The way EC opens up, similar to Hollow Gallo on the first Neu. Just mind-blowing. Great Brain label. You know it, you love it. It really does mix sort of a psychedelic rock and the krautrock style that was happening, and just incredible. The song "Hero" was apparently a big influence to Leiden and Public Image Limited, and just in its sort of because there's like definitely a punkier thing that's happening with Dinger's songs. Just a more intense thing. It almost does sound like Public Image, that song "Hero" too, which is amazing. E-Music, who was it? Sealand, I forget what label was. Someone started that label from this track, Sealand. But anyway, Neu 75, my number 44 on this list. Comic cover. Okay, number 43. Oops, I filed this one. Let me pull it. It happens to be right over here. Well, that was pretty quick. Why was this filed? Madrigal from 1969. An incredibly rare original album, known to sell for thousands and thousands. This is the first reissue that Subliminal Sounds did with Lysergia, an obscure private press originally from New Jersey, I think. Two different bills, Bill Horn and Bill Bunkowski, or William Horn, William Bunkowski. William Horn and William Bunkowski. This one's notable for the drum machine. A very early use of drum machine. It's all over this record. Very dark, very disturbed, but sort of a kind of similar to the Maitreya Kali record, Craig Smith. A folky sound to it at times.
My mind is so confused, I
The centerpiece is the Stone Freakout, which is effectively the second track on side 2. The long one, it's like 10-12 minutes of just experimentalism, electronic sort of happenings, drum machine, howling, a demented record, this one. But then it gets into this sort of pastoral, sort of laid-back folk songs, and then returns for more craziness on the, I think, another track on side 2, I forget which one it is, but this one was just never turned up until, 2014 and 15. This label reissued it, and then a few years after that, it actually was done as a Record Store Day record. But this is the first reissue. Only 500 copies of this one. Stone Freakout is super wild, and it looks like a home recording sort of record there. You can see in the images. It certainly looks, and even then the cover, it looks like this is what they were doing. This is where they're recording. These guys had nothing to do with this record, or don't want to talk about it. Apparently, there's like I guess the original press had a mixing error on track 2 and 3. Part of that Stone Freakout on the track after, it just completely cuts off the channel. So you're actually listening for a while, only one channel is on. So on this reissue, they effectively just doubled the monos to fix that. Not a lot of info on this one, very much a DIY descent into the dark, murkiest depths of the early 70s. The atmosphere is thick as a nightmare. But strong songs, and listening to that Stone Freakout is really cool. So this is Madrigal, self-titled, 1969 or 70 perhaps. Originally probably 300 to 500 records pressed. Here's another Tormented Soul, number 42. Circuit Rider. Very, very little to know about this record. From 1980, but believed to have recorded maybe in 71. This is essentially a biker on PCP, stoned out of his head, hollering like Jim Morrison. Better than Jim Morrison, if you ask me. There's the hype sticker that gets talked about all over the place. It's like Acid Archives labeled it the top 10 LP most likely recorded by a serial killer, and it sounds kind of that way, but it's not. It's definitely psychedelic, that's why it's on this list, but it has like a bunch of sort of country boogie and really downer sort of psych, that old time feeling, got that old time feeling. Big Billy Bad Billy, sort of like a Creedence thing, I think, if I remember correctly. This is a replication of what the original labels look like. This is a Numero Group reissue. The first one is to reissue it. You have to check out the track. I'll put it in here. How Long and Forever Angels Proud. It's talking about like spicy beef tacos or something. Yeah, look at this cover. I mean, you get to see that and you're going to wonder what's going on. But the guy's name was Thorn O'Rig, and there's really no information. I believe he did pass away. Numero Group issued a follow-up. That was all this unused stuff. That's actually quite good. I think it's called Photograph Attached. I have that too. What else did I write? Yeah, this is like seriously bent, screwed up biker rock, psychedelic biker rock, downer, with a definite downer vibe. And just if you love Private Press, you need Circuit Rider. I absolutely love this album. And good. I mean, obviously the songs are good. That's why it's here. So, just a demented dude. Jim Morrison vibe for sure, but just legitimately fucked up. So, I love it. Circuit Rider, number 42. All right, last one on this edition. We have the first album by Fairport Convention.
And my mind says I shouldn't, and my heart says I should.
1970 here in the US. This is the Cotillion pressing, but recorded I think in 68 and released on Polydor in the UK. This is the Cotillion white label promo. And I love Fairport Convention, especially the first few albums. Oh, I got glitter. There's glitter. My daughter was working on a project. Richard Thompson, Simon Nicol, and Judy Dybel, who was on this record, her only record that she's on. She would leave after this record to go form Trädgård. But it was sort of compared to like the English Jefferson Airplane, and it does sound like that. The country rock thing is there, but not quite. This is definitely more of a psychedelic rock album. Judy Dybel was one of the singers who would apparently do knitting while on stage when she wasn't singing. Richard Thompson, a young Richard Thompson, obviously an incredible guitar player, playing all the stringed instruments on this. Mandolin, electric acoustic guitars. Simon Nicol was doing 6 and 12 string guitars, banjo, violin. Dybel was playing auto harps, recorder, and piano, actually, so what do I know? Ian McDonald's, Ian Matthews doing juice harp and vocals. And then you had Tiger Hutchins, right? Bass guitar and jug. This jug. But they're doing half originals, half covers. And there's Jack of Diamonds, a co-song with Bob Dylan. You had 2 different Joni Mitchell songs, if I remember correctly. Yep, I Don't Know Where I Stand, which apparently was a big reason why she was starting to get known in the UK, and Chelsea Morning. And Emmett Rose, Time Will Show the Wise, of the first track. Otherwise, they're originals, done by various members of the band, mostly Richard Thompson with Simon Nicol, I think it is, yeah. Yeah, but in any case, a great sort of country fried acid country rock album. The other Fairport Convention albums sort of are good. They get more just straight folk rock, but this is where I think the psychedelic sort of aspect is. Self-titled record. What else can I tell you about them? Just strong rock album. Just a real strong rock album. Joe Boyd, the manager and producer of this record. I absolutely love this. Every time I pull it out, and that's why it's on this list. Pretty high, maybe pretty high for this, but just strong playing, strong production. I love the cover choices they picked. Jack of Diamonds, that song really kicks ass too. So it's number 41 in my list of the top 100 Seeking a Threads Psychedelic 100, and that is the list. I'm gonna pull out again what we're listening to as we have some good old orgy style moaning. Hapshash and the Colored Coat, their first record, featuring the Human Host and the Heavy Metal Kids. Maybe an early usage of the term heavy metal. Okay, that's it. That's gonna do it. I appreciate everyone for watching. Thank you. Your comments and thoughts are appreciated. Until the next time, be well out there.